All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 26 of the Stop and Give Me 20 podcast. 20 minutes with some of the world's top fitness professionals. I'm your host, Anthony Renna. You can check out the show notes at stop20podcast.com. That's stop20podcast.com. Before you do that, make sure you go to iTunes or Stitcher, subscribe to the show, leave us a rating and a review, or the podcast app that iTunes or that Apple gives you on your iPhone. All right, for today's episode, I have my longtime friend on, Brett Jones, and Brett is a certified athletic trainer and strength and conditioning specialist based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. With over 20 years experience, he's a highly sought out to consult with professional teams and athletes, as well as presenting throughout the U.S. and internationally. He's taught kettlebell techniques and principles since 2003, and he's currently the Director of Education for StrongFirst. He's also taught for functional movement systems since 2006, created a bunch of DVDs with Gray Cook, including the really awesome Secrets of series. He's currently an advisory board member for FMS in the development of the curriculum and the instructors. You can't be around this guy for more than 17 seconds before you'll hear a movie quote. Brett, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ant, for having me. It's great to be on, and I'm not sure I can live up to that bio. Who wrote that?
It's funny, too, about let's talk about the movies really quick. It's got to be getting harder as you get older because, you reference a lot of old, it's people our age. I get it. But, as you get older and you teach, it's got to be harder. But
It's become the joke now is that the movie quotes are for me. They're for me and about 3 or 4 people in the audience who are old enough to remember the movies or happen to have seen them. So it doesn't stop me that I'm becoming dated, but the fact that I can throw in a Deadpool reference every now and then is helping me get up to speed.
There you go. I think I say I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come down for a while from Caddyshack every time it ends. So my wife just hates that quote. Brett, let's get into this. What's your story? What's that spark that kind of got you into your fitness lifestyle?
I'd say it's twofold. My father started exercising when I was young to lose weight. He had stopped smoking and decided to get fit. And I watched him getting up at 4:30. I didn't watch him, but I knew he was getting up at 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, going to work out, then going to work and getting home 6, 7 o'clock at night for dinner. So, I really watched my dad live the lifestyle, making it a priority and making sure that he was doing what he needed to be fit for us. And I was a wrestler in junior high and high school. And that certainly gave me a base. My dad we had the old plastic cement weights from DP. There's a throwback. One of the first DP cable machines, and eventually he got us a full powerlifting bench and squat stands. And so he really supported our from an athletic standpoint and supported us being fit and what we needed to be strong for our sport.
Very cool. So yeah, it was all sports related, really. Obviously health related in the beginning with your dad, like that influence. But it was mostly. Were you doing it for wrestling, or was that really the main driver?
It was, and I was always good at pull-ups, and so there were certain things. I was always a little bit of a strong kid, good at the bench, good at pull-ups, and that certainly benefited me in wrestling. And Arnold's Education of a Bodybuilder or Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, those were the first 2 references that I would have really had access to. So I'm not saying I had the best info for training for wrestling, but that was certainly the focus.
Yeah, it was funny. We had Brett Bartholomew on last episode. He was saying the same thing about the Arnold stuff. But, at the time, that was the best stuff we had out there, and it was pretty good. So, awesome. Brett, who was that person growing up that kind of really influenced you the most?
So it's my grandmother and grandfather on my father's side, and my parents saw just a lot of strength, and I refer to it as stubbornness. I think persistence would be the nice way to phrase that. But in my family, it's not negative to be stubborn. we were all stubborn. I was kind of screwed right from the start because stubborn comes from both sides of my dad's side, my mom's side. So, my grandfather, grandmother were huge influences on my life. Those are really it.
Were they like you? You're like a quiet, stubborn, like it's very annoying when you're teaching. So were they, is that where you get that quiet stubbornness from them?
Well, that and if you were going to raise a point in my house, you better be right, because we were going to discuss that. My mom was sharp as a tack and wasn't going to let anybody, get away with anything that was not accurate. So we learned, and that, to the people who have heard me blather on for 45-minute podcast will laugh at that quiet, stubborn comment, because I just my family, I guess I would say, we lived it, and so it's just part of me. Just being stubborn. So
and there wasn't, when you're having those arguments back then, there wasn't, you couldn't just pull it up on Google. Hey, let's Google it. Let's find it out right now. So you had to make sure you had your stuff together.
Back to the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Nice. Brett, who's kind of that superhero now? Anybody out there that you're kind of? I know you're always continuing your education. You're surrounded by some amazing people. Who are you looking up to, and some of the things that they're doing that you think is you aspire to do?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little different direction on this. It's my grandmother on my mother's side. She is strong in ways that I cannot imagine. She is an example of persistence and stubbornness in its finest, and she is an example to me. So,
very cool. And with your stuff, I mean, you're director of education for StrongFirst, and you're still training. You do a lot of Skype stuff, and you work with FMS and their development of their curriculum. Who are you trying to help with? Who are you trying to be a superhero to?
Well, not to sound like Deadpool, but I'm no superhero. That's certainly never, there is no Brett Jones brand. I work within StrongFirst. I work within FMS. Those are the things that I do and the things that I think can be very influential. I guess a little bit more like Cap America. My goal is really just to be a good man. Not saying I'm always successful, but my goal is to be a good man. And just let people know that strength has a greater purpose.
Good job. I mean, I think you're doing that. So nice stuff. Brett, you're around obviously teaching so much. What are some positive things that you see in kind of the students and the people coming to some of the courses, whether it be FMS, StrongFirst, anything that you're teaching?
Well, it's the fitness industry. Right now, there's certainly a huge drive towards continuing education. People want information on a variety of subjects, and they're coming in having had exposure to a lot of different things. So I would say that beyond, we're kind of getting past the point of people having a basic cert and relying on the way their coach trained them, or whatever, to really progressing and learning more. As an industry. Now, that's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes we collect so much info, we don't know how to, we don't have a system in place to process it and make it effective.
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation before too, you and I mean, and maybe even on the podcast, just in terms of information. I think for me, one of what I always loved about StrongFirst is the simplicity and the incredible teaching that everything that I've learned and how to teach, and that simplicity. You think we're getting too much information, though? You think we're not filtering it the right way? Are you getting people in there that are almost trying to teach you in some of these classes? I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. Again, I think I can't count the number of workshops I teach where somebody comes up to me afterward and says, "Well, what's next? We'll go home and practice this for the next year." Like, it's really it should be kind of that simple. Like, you don't need anything new right now. You just learned this, and you just learned it. Now go use it, live it, apply it, and once you come out the other side of that, now let's see if something else fits. I think that's kind of the biggest thing, is just being willing to. I think as an industry, we're searching, weeding, sifting through the weeds of evidence-based and research and the influence of social media and the fact that somebody can throw up a blog post or a tweet, and it has huge influence, and it draws people in different directions, sometimes not the best direction.
Absolutely. It's interesting, too, I think, with the two main companies that you teach for. In StrongFirst, I think you get a better percentage of people willing to take that time, right? And obviously that's because most of the time it's for themselves that they're doing this certification for, although we are trying to teach it. But a lot of people love the fact that, they're going to go in there, they're going to do this whole thing. But I think that idea of practice, right, with StrongFirst is accepted. Whereas with FMS, you'll say, guys, don't do this to anybody seriously yet. Go home and screen your parents, screen your wife, screen your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your dog. Screen everybody you can as much as you can. Do it twice. But we don't get that with the FMS, but more like with the StrongFirst, people are kind of willing to do that practice. I don't know if it's the message. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we definitely, the first people to get attracted towards kettlebell training and working with Pavel were military, law enforcement, martial artists. The fitness industry over the last, if I broke the 14 years that I've been teaching with Pavel into halves, I'd say kind of the first half was a little bit more military, law enforcement, people that were going and applying this not only to people they worked with, but to themselves. And in the last 7 years, it's been a little more fitness industry oriented, where trainers are coming in, coaches are coming in to learn more, to then go use it as a tool in their businesses. So there's a dedication that's required to get ready for the cert. It's almost imposed upon you that you start to use and work with this tool just to get ready for the cert. So I think that is certainly a factor, and is why we have the standards that we have and have the design to it that we have. The screen, as far as FMS is concerned, the screen really hasn't changed. Been about 20 years now. It's been out there. I've been teaching it coming on 11 years. And it is, it's the same screen. We've clarified some things with some verbal instructions and things like that, but it's the same screen. And I don't fear being repetitive or boring. I'll get up and teach the same thing 10 years from now, just because of the turnover in the industry and the fact that we can still do it better. You can never do the basics well enough.
Absolutely. I think, the message is certainly clear in both of those. So good stuff. Brett, let's take a minute. Have you read anything lately that you kind of like, man, you're trying to tell everybody about? What book have you read, and just give us a takeaway from it?
I'd say the two big ones would be Extreme Ownership and Legacy, the book Legacy, which is about the New Zealand All Blacks. Both of them talk about leadership and culture. Legacy is a little more on the culture side of developing the culture of your group. Extreme Ownership more on the leadership side and how to lead. And the two groups that teach within and now have administrative roles and have responsibility for developing instructors and curriculum and things like that. Extreme Ownership talks about decentralized command and the necessity for a clear message and mission so that people in those decentralized command areas can make the right decisions, and so that the message moves forward in a good way. So those two books have been very impactful for me from a leadership and developing culture of a group perspective.
Love it. I'm in the middle of listening to Legacy right now. Actually, I've been in contact with James Kerr to get him on the Strength Coach podcast. And actually, Extreme Ownership is I just downloaded it yesterday, so it's coming up soon. So good stuff. All right, Brett, now it's time for the stop and give me 5 rapid fire questions and answers. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, desert island movies. I'm going to give you 3. I give everybody 1, but there's no way you could have 1. What are your 3 movies you're bringing?
I think I'm going to surprise some people. Shawshank Redemption, The Martian, and something like Despicable Me. When I think about that question, those may not be my favorite movies of all time, but if I'm flipping through the channels and The Martian is on, there's a good chance I'm going to stop and watch. Same with Shawshank, both of them powerful stories. Despicable Me, you got to laugh.
Yeah.
You got to laugh. And I'm fortunate that it's unfortunate that my stepdaughter is now old enough to where she's not into sitting down and watching something like Despicable Me with her stepdad, but took full advantage of that when I could, and there's some great comedy there.
Absolutely, and I love all the spin-offs. I love the Minions. So
yes.
What movie are you kind of embarrassed that you love?
Midnight in Paris. Midnight in Paris is, and actually, even though I don't think that he is a quality individual, and that sounds really harsh, Woody Allen is a tremendous director from a creative and artistic standpoint. He's a tremendous. His recent movies, A Midnight in Paris, Irrational Man, Club Society, I think was the last one. Cafe Society. There's some really not only funny but poignant parts of that. And Midnight in Paris is just the Hemingway character alone is worth watching the movie.
Yeah, agreed. I absolutely love that movie. All right. I thought of this question today because it's going through my brain now. What movie would you have loved to be in?
It'd have to be a superhero movie. I mean, I think I could be a victim for Deadpool. Or somebody standing in the background during a Captain America film. Nice.
I think I gotta go with Goodfellas. They gotta be in the bar scene when they beat up the guy for saying shoot when Joe Pesci gets out. I gotta be in that. I gotta be one of the guys kicking the guy. I don't know.
Get your shine box.
Yeah, there you go. Brett, so much teaching. What's your best teaching experience ever?
I couldn't narrow it down, and I can't narrow it down. I mean, my first Perform Better teaching experience, I was teaching the Get Up, and the room was just packed. A ton of people in there. The second CKFMS with Gray was really a lot of fun. A lot of things came together professionally in that, and pick any of my chances to teach with Pavel. I came up teaching with Pavel in a very organic phase of growth for his workshops, and it was that was some really unique instances. Ignorance was bliss. We embraced this kind of organic thing that we had going on, and a really good system came out of it.
Nice. Lunch with someone no longer living.
My grandfather. It would be amazing to see him again, but I'd also have some hard questions for him. But he's a guy who was a huge figure in my life.
Nice. I think that's going to be a question coming up soon to someone else. Is that what question would you ask? What 3 questions would you ask? I love it. Brett, are you working on anything that's kind of getting you excited right now?
I am so busy within the curriculum updates for StrongFirst, and now as Director of Education, moving into assisting the StrongFirst barbell and StrongFirst body weight. StrongFirst Lifter is our barbell workshop. I'm going to be diving into those curriculum and really trying to help progress those within the FMS, just continuing to develop the leadership and develop our instructors. I'm becoming a little more passionate on presentation skills and helping people get their message across better. So that would be it.
Very cool. Also, not just presentation skills, I was going to say, one thing I think you're really good at is kind of controlling the room, which I think is a really important skill. So it's something to think about.
Awesome.
What's that letter to your younger self and the advice you'd kind of give yourself kind of moving forward?
Have more fun. I am a workaholic. Which has benefited me from a career standpoint, but has not been the best thing from a personal standpoint. I have it at too many times in my life. I have lived to work instead of working to live. That would be the biggest thing. I would go back, take myself less seriously. You can embrace your work and still have time to have fun.
Good stuff. Well, I can tell you've been a huge impact on my fitness experience and helped me get through my first RKC and then my 2 SFGs after that. With your programming. And you've been a great friend to StrengthCoach.com and the Strength Coach podcast. So thanks for coming on Stop 20 and giving us a different side of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ant.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 26 of the Stop and Give Me 20 podcast. Thanks again to Brett Jones. Make sure to check out all the links to all his stuff at stop20podcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave us a review, and a rating really helps us out. My name's Anthony Rena. Thanks so much for stopping by.